In our horological lives, our interpretation of how the watch looks and wears is largely dependent on the case size as advertised. What's interesting is that many times the watches marketed at same size don't look or wear the same. You can have a product marketed to raise the eyebrows and attract the attention, a marketing to turn the heads and incite discussions, curiosity and commence the talks, a marketing to achieve a number that generally represents a modern benchmark and falls in the range that meets market trends. But then the same product can be architectured and engineered in a way that it doesn't deviate from the core attributes of fit and finish, and doesn't even depart in terms of the looks and wearability of the watch. From manufacturer's perspective, it achieves modernization and adaptability of the product to evolve with time. And then from the owner's perspective, you enjoy the fit and the wear. That doesn't take away the experience or the originality of the product. Despite the new size, that doesn't necessarily deprive the watch of its original wearability, looks, experience and vibe. After producing Oyster Perpetual in 39mm case size only for 5 years, Rolex finally discontinued the size and added a new size of 41mm this year. From this one line in the specs or the news, you would naturally assume that the size has increased by 2mm, or so is the wear. But it's amazing how much you can achieve and deliver by intelligent engineering and design changes. And if you think that the watches in the video don't actually look much different in terms of the size, they actually are not. I can almost guarantee that you can't even spot in this clip which one is OP41 of the two and which one is OP39. Starting off with the face of the watch, the OP41 that in this video has blue dial does appear to be slightly bigger than the OP39, and measured on my caliber, OP41 read at the outer extremity of the bezel came out to be 39.08mm versus OP39 that measured at the same outer extremity of the bezel came out to be 37.79mm. So while there is an opinion that these watches look about the same, the size of the face on OP41 is about 1.3mm bigger than that of OP39. If you're thinking that the dial of OP41 also looks slightly bigger, I measured the size of crystal on top of these watches, and OP41 crystal measured on my caliber came out to be 33.43mm as opposed to OP39 where the crystal diameter came out to be 32.45mm. So while the paper specs will tell you 2mm of size increase, the dial is less than 1mm bigger in case of OP41 than it is in OP39. Knowing the size of the crystal and overall face with bezel included, you know that the difference is only around 1mm, and you would think that it's the size of the case that takes the extra heft to make the OP41 2mm larger in the overall size. And this is exactly where the most interesting part of this comparison comes from. The size of OP39 measured diagonally at the case, just under the crown on my caliber came out to be 39.08mm, and I measured the size on OP41 at the same position expecting it to return the reading of 41mm, but the size of case on OP41 actually came out to be only at 39.52mm. So again, while marketed as 2mm larger size, the case dimension diagonally is less than 0.5mm bigger on OP41. So it's safe to say that the size of OP41 is actually 39.5mm when measured diagonally. It was hard to believe for me as well, so I analyzed it further to understand why. See the side profiles of the cases just below the bezel. OP39 has curved profile which sticks out further to another 0.6mm and adds a total of around 1.2mm of overall substance to the case under the bezel. Now if you see the OP41 on the right, While it does have slightly curved profile under the bezel as well, the case actually doesn't stick out further past the bezel, and the overall case dimension aligns with the bezel dimensions. Hence the reason we have both the bezel and the case measuring at around 39.5mm in size. The dimension of case with crown included came out to be 41.3mm for OP39 and measured the same for OP41. The horizontal dimension with crown included came out to be 42.08mm. Again, we have a difference of under 1mm in size. How the watch wears on the wrist is largely dependent on its lug-to-lug vertical height, and this is another area which Rolex have reworked intelligently. So while the watch face has increased, the lug-to-lug height hasn't changed so much. The lug-to-lug height on OP on my caliber came out to be 47.3mm, and the same lug-to-lug height on OP41 came out at 47.35mm. So if you factor in some human error in taking the readings, the lug-to-lug height of both watches is actually the same. And while the size on paper is 2mm larger for OP41 for the case, the wearability isn't different even by 1/10 of millimeter. The bracelet width is another area that has changed, and we have 21mm bracelet on the new OP41 versus the 20mm bracelet on OP39 at the lugs. Although the bracelet width has increased in the new OP41, it hasn't come at cost of lug width, and rather than shaving the metal off the lugs, the case span is slightly broader on the new OP41, and we have width of case at the narrowest point on OP41 measured at 25.81mm as opposed to OP39 that has the width of case where bracelet connects at 24.76mm. Again, a difference of around 1mm, which is naturally coming from the bracelet width. While the bracelet is wider on the new OP41 at the lugs, the width of bracelet at the clasp or the width of clasp itself in both watches is exactly the same, that is 17.63mm on both watches. This also means that the bracelet on new OP41 tapers down more steeply to reduce to same narrower bracelet, and it does add interesting and dressy profile to the bracelet when the watch is on the wrist. The clasps, although don't have flip lock in any of them, yet in the new OP41 the clasp system has improved, and we have 5mm extension and easy link on offer, in addition to micro adjustments, as opposed to OP39 where we only have micro adjustments but no easy link. The new OP41 has slightly thicker case, and we have 11.75mm thickness on it, as opposed to OP39 that has a thickness of 11.24mm. That is, we have 0.51mm thinner case on OP39. The difference is small, but it is there. The thicker case on new OP41 has resulted from the all-new movement caliber 3230 to offer 70 hours of power reserve. To check the accuracy, I don't rely on instantaneous accuracy, so I had put the watches in observation for 24 hours and changed their position 5 times between horizontal and vertical storage. After 24 hours of observation time, OP39 gained only 2 seconds and OP41 only 1.5 seconds. The crystal on OP39 doesn't have any air coating neither externally nor internally, as opposed to OP41 that has internally air treated crystal on top. So if you were thinking, why does the OP41 dial looks more clearer and transparent of the two? You know the reason now. This is also reflected in the laser etched crown on both of these watches. And if you see OP39 crystal, this crown has one circle at its base. But if you compare it with OP41, you can see that there is another line or circle inside the main circle at the base of the crown, which as per my research represents internal air treatment on the crystal. Putting the watches under the dark, OP39 comes with green lume as opposed to OP41 which comes with blue lume. Now the lume in this reference of OP39 is only at 3, 6 and 9 o'clock hour markers, but if you take black or white dials of OP39, they will have the same fully applied lume like OP41 in this clip. The green lumes are typically stronger and last longer, But Rolex have mastered their blue looms too, and even after 10 minutes, the brightness of blue lume on OP41 was consistent with green lume on OP39, if not better. In terms of weight, OP39 size to 6.5 inches wrist weighs around 125 grams on my scale, and OP41 adjusted to the same bracelet length weighed at 131 grams. The difference of 6 grams is hardly noticeable on the wrist, but that still has likely resulted from 5mm extension link on the clasp of OP41, which is missing in OP39. For reference, each link of the bracelet weighs 3 grams, so as you add links to size the bracelet, you will add weight accordingly. On the wrist, both of these watches wear like a joy. My wrist size is 6.5 inches and wristband is 55mm. And since both of these watches share the same lug-to-lug height, there is not a single millimeter difference in how they wear on the wrist. Also, since both of these watches have only 47.3mm of lug-to-lug height, you can see that the watches wear easily in the center of my wrist, and there is no feel that either of them is undersized or oversized for my wrist. But since OP41 has slightly wider horizontal span and of course a slightly bigger face or the dial, but this definitely doesn't come at the cost of wrist wear. Rolex Oyster Perpetual is the classic line from the manufacturer that carries with it the history, brand legacy, and then all the characters of reliability, accuracy, and timelessness of design. If you were previously considering the OP39 and were put off by the new release of OP41 due to marketed size that is 2mm bigger on the paper, the size is actually more or less the same. And since the case size is generally not represented by the dial size or bezel measurement, rather the dimension of the case itself, there's practically no considerable difference in the case sizes or how they wear. Or put it this way, if you always loved how the OP39 wears, but found its face or dial to be slightly smaller for your liking, you have just been hurt by Rolex. And if the new case size is 41mm, then Rolex actually released it in 2015 in the form of OP39. They just admitted it now.